What's up, Star Wars nerds? Welcome to another episode of Brett on Fett. On today's episode, we'll be looking at the most important characters still missing from the vintage collection from Revenge of the Sith. Let's get to it. Welcome back to the channel. This is episode 96 of Brett on Fett, and it's time for another edition of my series I like to call M.I.A.F.F, or Missing in Action Figure Form, where I go over the top characters still missing from each film as figures in the vintage collection. And I've already done episodes 1, The Phantom Menace, and episodes 2, Attack of the Clones, so now it's time to get into episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Now in this series, I'm not going over necessarily my top wants for TVC from those films, but it is about the most significant characters. These are the characters that have the most impact to the movie, and it could be versions of characters that we've already got figures for, but there's just a more iconic version out there that's still missing. And so that's what this series is about. And Revenge of the Sith is an iconic film. It is the most popular movie of the prequels. And there's still several characters from key scenes in the movie that we are still missing from the vintage collection. But before we get into what's missing, let's first go over everything we have so far in the vintage collection from Revenge of the Sith, and then I'll quickly go through my personal top 5 favorite releases we have so far. Alright, so let's kick things off by taking a look at all of the TVC figures we have so far from Revenge of the Sith. There are 16 total, and let's run through them real quick, starting with VC-12 Darth Sidious, VC-13 Anakin Skywalker / Darth Vader, VC-15 Clone Trooper, VC-16 Obi-Wan-Kenobi, VC-17 General Grievous, VC-18 Magna Guard, VC-19 Clone Commander Cody, VC-20 Yoda, VC-38 Clone Trooper 212th Battalion, VC-43 Commander Gree, VC-46 AT-RT Driver, VC-58 Ayla Secura, VC-60 Clone Trooper 501st Legion, VC-97 Oddball Clone Pilot, VC-110 Shock Trooper, and VC-145 41st Elite Corps Clone Trooper. And by the way, all of these, with the exception of the last one on the list, VC-145, came out in TVC 1.0. Only VC-145, the 41st Elite Trooper, was released as part of TVC 2.0, and that one came out in 2019. That's 5 years ago. So it's been 5 years with no Revenge of the Sith release for TVC. And that is pretty incredible considering Revenge of the Sith is by far the most popular of the prequel movies, and in some cases it's the favorite Star Wars film of all the movies for some fans, particularly the generation that grew up on the prequels. Alright, next up, let's go through my personal top 5 releases from Revenge of the Sith for the vintage collection, starting with number 5, Commander Gree. Now the reason I love this one is the card back. It's just a badass card back. The figure itself is actually a repack. I think it started off with the 30th anniversary and then was maybe repacked in Legacy Collection and then again in TVC. It is VC-43. The figure is not great, but it's not bad. But it's the card back that really makes this one for me. I just love this card back. So I had to put him in my top 5. Next up, I have the Shock Trooper, VC-110, another really awesome card back. I love the flames, the lava in the background from Mustafar. That is such a cool card back, and the figure looks really good. It is a slightly outdated Clone Trooper body, of course, but I really like the paint job they did with that one. I thought it was very clean paint on that one. It's VC-110, and there's a look at the back of the card. Pretty cool figure. Again, outdated, but still really good for the time, but the card back just makes this thing number 4 for me. All right, at number 3, I have the Magna Guard VC-18. Now, you guys know I'm a sucker for droids, and this is a really cool droid. The card back looks amazing. Now, this is the foil chase version, but had it been the regular version, I still would have put it number 3, but the foil in particular looks really good with that card back image. And the mold on the figure is really good. Of course, they reused it more recently for Jedi Survivor. There's a back of it, this VC-18. And it's just a very cool droid, and I just thought they nailed the mold on this one. and the card back just looks amazing, so I had to put it in my top 3. At number 2, I have Clone Commander Cody, VC19, and I've got him so high because this is one of my favorite card backs of all time, people. Now this again is a foil chase version, but it wouldn't have mattered. I still would have put the regular version number 2 because I love this image of Cody. It's such a significant scene where he's receiving Order 66. That's the first Order 66 we hear in the film, and it's just a perfect angle there with him holding Palpatine's hologram. I mean, I just love it. Again, the figure is outdated. The weathering on it is a little bit cheesy. It is VC19. Here's a look at the back of the card. So even though the figure is a bit outdated, the card back is just so good that it pushed it all the way to number 2 for me. And for my number 1 favorite current TVC figure from Revenge of the Sith, I have General Grievous, VC17. I just think this one is the total package. I love the card back image of Grievous here. Looks really good, really menacing. And the figure just looks amazing in the blister there. It comes with a ton of stuff. You've got all the lightsabers, he's got the forearms, he's got the cloth goods for his cape. I just think it's a really good mold. It is VC17. Here's a look at the back of the card. Now I have heard complaints that the figure is not very stable. You might have to have a stand. I do not have this figure loose, so maybe it's not fair to me to put him at number 1. But, you know, a figure like this being released now would be considered deluxe. And I just thought this was a really good release for the time. He looks great on the card, and so it's just, I really enjoy this figure. I think it's the total package, like I said, figure and card back combo, so I had to put Grievous at number 1. Alright, so now that we've gone through everything we do have from Revenge of the Sith in TVC, and some of my favorites from the line, let's finally talk about what the main focus of this video is, and that is what figures are missing from Episode 3 in TVC. And again, I'm going to be counting down the most significant characters or significant versions of characters that are missing in TVC. And so again, this is not the same thing as a top 5 of my personal wants in the line, because sometimes I may want figures that are background characters or very, very minimal impact characters, but they just look really cool and maybe they would help complete a scene, that sort of thing. So that's not what this is about. I'm just going to go over what I think are the most significant characters that made an impact to the film that we don't have. Now, narrowing down a list from Episode 3 was really difficult for me because it just seems like there is a ton of missing characters that, to me, were on the same level of importance. And so I'm afraid I had to cheat a little bit on this list. I have several ties, but I will explain why I have it that way and what my train of thought was. So let's get started. Alright, I have to kick things off, as always, with an honorable mention. And for my honorable mention, I have General Tarful. And I'm really sad that I had put him in honorable mention because he really should be in the top 5, but I just couldn't find a spot for him. But, you know, he's obviously very important. He's leading the Wookiee army on the Battle of Kashyyyk, and that was a major battle in the film. And so Tarful is a very important character. Obviously, he doesn't have very many speaking lines or that sort of thing, but he does make an impact to the film. It was really cool to see a Wookiee general and, you know, another Wookiee significant character other than Chewbacca. And the last time and only time we've gotten Tarful in action figure form was way back with that initial 2005 Revenge of the Sith line. So he is way overdue for an updated figure. I would love to see him in TVC. You know, maybe they could use some of the parts from the Chrysanthemum figure that was so good. I don't know, but I would just love to see Tarful in TVC. All right, so kicking off the top 5, at number 5, I've got him at 5B, and that's because there's a tie already, and that's Commander Bly. And Commander Bly is from the 327th Star Corps. He was on Felucia with Aayla Secura, and he was the leader of that outfit and led the attack on Aayla Secura at Order 66. So I think it's important to get Bly in there. We already have Aayla Secura. I think we need the lead clone under that Jedi during Order 66, because Order 66 was such a epic and just significant part of the film. And so I think it's important to get that lead clone in there. And the last time we've had a Bly figure in 3 3/4 was on a Star Wars Rebels card back, and he was in this animated style. And, you know, he doesn't look too bad, but it's just not a great figure. So it's well overdue that we get a fully articulated Clone Commander Bly. We've had a great version of him in the Black Series. Now it's time to bring him over in TVC. So for the other side of that tie at number 5A, I have Plo Koon, the Jedi. And the reason I have him in here, he's obviously a pretty important Jedi throughout the prequels and the Clone Wars animated series, and we've never had him in TVC, so you know, he's important enough just for that reason. But I also put him in there because he is in that Order 66 montage of scenes towards the end of the film that's just so important for that movie. We've already got a clone pilot, and so I know it's oddball, and I don't believe it's oddball that actually takes Plo Koon out, but I think it's close enough that we don't really need another clone pilot for that particular Order 66 scene, but we got to get Plo Koon in there. And the last time we had him was from the Legacy Collection, and it was an okay figure, but just not great. I think we could do much better in TVC these days. Got to get Plo Koon in the line. Alright guys, you're going to start seeing a pattern here with my picks that have to do with the Order 66 montage of scenes in the film. And so at number 4B, I have Commander Neo. He is the leader of the 91st Mobile Reconnaissance Squad of Clones on Seleucami, that he leads the attack on the Jedi Stas Ali. And I've always loved this clone. He's one of my favorites. I just think he looks really cool. I like the design of his helmet and his whole look, and I love his speeder. And it's just another important scene because it's part of Order 66. And so I think it's time for an updated version of him in TVC. Now, the last time we got him was in the 3 3/4 Black Series, and it wasn't a bad figure. It's okay, but I just thought it could be better. I just want to see a new version, all new version, you know, maybe using a lot of the parts from the latest clone body. I think it would be easy to do, but gotta get him in there because of the importance of that Order 66 scene. And so if you're going to have Commander Neo, you got to get the Jedi he worked with and turned against. And so the other side of that tie at number 4A is Stas Ali, the Jedi that leads the 91st Mobile Reconnaissance on Seleucami. Again, just same thing. It's part of that Order 66 scene. And so you need those two characters at least. I'd love to get even more of those Seleucami troops there. But for now, I think we should get Stas Ali and Neo. And the last time we got a Stas Ali figure was in the Legacy Collection, and it was a very good figure. She looks great, but it's still a little bit outdated. And the point of this is we're still missing her from TVC, and TVC is the cream of the crop. It's the latest and greatest line we have for 3 3/4. And so I still think we need to get Stas Ali in there to complete that Order 66 scene. All right, you guys probably really see where I'm going with this now. At number 3B, I have Commander Bakara. This is from the last of the Order 66 montage scenes we have not discussed yet, which is on Magito. He is the leader of the 21st Nova Corps under General Ki-Adi-Mundi. And he's just an awesome looking clone. He's another one of my favorite clones. He looks so cool. And again, it's another Order 66 scene. He's the lead clone. He's taking out a Jedi, and so I think we need to have him in the line. The last time we had him again was in the Legacy Collection. An okay figure, but extremely outdated. I think it would be easy to do an all-new Commander Bakara. And as you may have guessed, for number 3A, I have Ki-Adi-Mundi. Now, like Plo Koon, Ki-Adi-Mundi is a very important Jedi throughout the prequels. He definitely has more speaking parts than the majority of Jedi characters throughout the prequels. So I think it's finally time we get Ki-Adi-Mundi in TVC. You've got to have him opposite of Commander Bakara, because Commander Bakara and his Marine Corps are the ones that take out Ki-Adi-Mundi in that heartbreaking part of the Order 66 montage. Now, the last time we got a 3 3/4 Ki-Adi-Mundi figure was actually from the Clone Wars line. So this is the animated version of him, so I'm not going to count that. And so you really got to go all the way back to the original initial Revenge of the Sith line to get the true version of Ki-Adi-Mundi. Now, Legacy Collection did put out a concept version of him. We're not going to count that. That is obviously not from the prequels. And so this is really all we have. And so he is way overdue for a TVC figure. We recently got him in the Black Series, and it is an excellent looking figure. You should check that out, especially if you're a Black Series fan. But we definitely need Ki-Adi-Mundi in TVC. And before we move on to my top 2, I just want to say regarding my selection of all these Jedis and their clone commander counterparts from Order 66, I think it would be really awesome if Hasbro released these as pairs in those 2 packs. You know, the individually carded figures, but 2 of them in the pack, similar to how we had the Jedi Knight Revan and HK-47, for example. I think that would be really awesome to do Order 66 2-packs with these figures. Alright, coming in at number 2, I have padmeamidala in her Mustafar outfit. Now, I know this is probably not the most exciting figure, but let's face it, with the prequels, there are 3 main heroes, Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Padme, and I feel like all 3 of those characters should be in figure form from each of the 3 films, and we currently have no Padme from episode 3. And so if you're going to put her in there, I think this particular outfit from Mustafar is the most iconic because it's in that final big climactic scene. And so I think we got to get Padme in there. And the last time we had this version of her character was way back in the Saga line. Well, it was actually the Greatest Battles line, part of that Saga line. And this was from 2006 and is a very outdated figure. I think it was a repack from the initial Revenge of the Sith line, and just not a good figure. So I would like to see an all new updated Padme to go with our Anakin, our Obi-Wan from episode 3. And by the way, I think most of us agree we need an all new Anakin Skywalker from Revenge of the Sith, including the Obi-Wan. They're both outdated figures, so they desperately need updates. I'm not including them on this list because they're not missing. They're in the line. This is about missing figures, but we do need updated versions of Anakin and Obi-Wan. Maybe Anakin is coming because we're getting that Ahsoka flashback version of him, so I'm hopeful he is coming. And maybe they can go ahead and put out a Padme from episode 3 around the same time. That would be awesome. And finally, coming in at number 1, I chose Chancellor Palpatine. Chancellor Palpatine is the mastermind of the plots for the entire prequels. And so he is a very, very important character, obviously. Now, we do have Darth Sidious in the line. He was the very first Revenge of the Sith figure for TVC. But that's after he turns completely evil and deformed and he claims himself to be Emperor. I'm talking about we need the regular dude, the Chancellor Palpatine that is the Senate, the one that fights Mace Windu. We need that version of him in TVC. That is a very important version of Palpatine, and I just really can't believe we have really no version of Palpatine before he becomes the evil Emperor. It's pretty surprising. No Senator Palpatine and no Chancellor Palpatine anywhere in TVC. The last mainline 3 3/4 version of Chancellor Palpatine we got from Revenge of the Sith was in the initial Revenge of the Sith line. However, a few years later in 2008, when they had the Target exclusive Order 66 2-packs, which were really cool, they did include that version of Palpatine in there, although they labeled it Emperor Palpatine, which is a total mistake. At that point in the film, he had not yet declared himself Emperor. It's also kind of a mistake to put him in this Order 66 2-pack to begin with, because at that point in the film, he had not called for Order 66 yet. That was after he was deformed. And so it kind of didn't make sense to put him in there with Commander Thyre to me, but whatever. The point is, it's like a 16-year-old figure. It's outdated, and it's time that we get an all-new Chancellor Palpatine in TVC. Alright, so here's another look at my cheating top 5 missing in action figure form characters from Revenge of the Sith that we desperately need in the Vintage Collection. Alright, so that's going to do it for this episode of Brett on Fett. Let me know in the comments what you think are the most important characters we still need in the Vintage Collection from Revenge of the Sith. Thanks for checking out this video. Thank you so much to my subscribers. Don't forget you can also follow me on Instagram. Take care, and we'll see you next time.